16% of the world's reef, like across the world, were affected, with the parts of the Indian Ocean losing up to 90% of their coral. That is a huge amount. Then came 2010. So we had about 12 years in between. Another intense El Nino-like pattern hit, and it triggered a global bleaching again, right? Once again. While it wasn't as deadly as 1998, it served as a warning that these events were no longer rare. They were becoming more frequent. If you think about 1998, you have a major bleaching event. I remember politicians going, especially Ted Cruz, going on like a talk show, like a celebrity talk show. I think it was Letterman or something like that. And they were talking about, the coral reefs. They were talking about bleaching, and they were talking about just temperature in general. At that time, climate denial was in full-fledged. Like the Republicans and conservatives here in Canada were just denying everything. Kyoto Protocol was not even really a thing yet, but people were talking about that. It was like the Paris Agreement of the 2000s. But, it was starting to be talked about more and more because scientists kept observing these bleaching events and then also mass die-offs and temperature rising. We started to see a pattern change more and more, and we're warning people. I was in school at this point. I remember scientists and professors were saying, we are in trouble if we do not act. In 1998, we were going to be in trouble if we didn't act. Look, we are now 2025, haven't acted as fast as what we needed to. But then, you go 2010, you think you're done, you think you're okay, you think you're out of it. Denialism is still hot and ready. People are just still denying it. It's the oil and gas companies are strong in their PR, and they just continue to do that. You get another bleaching event. Not as bad, but you get another bleaching event. But all this talk about denial, people are like, yeah, well, you know what? We saw a peak in 1980, and then it started to go down a bit. So it's starting to decrease. But no, what was happening is if you just looked at from 1998 to 2010, yeah, it didn't look like it was fluctuating and looked like it was going down because 1998 was so high. But when you looked at the entire graph, like for the last 100 or 200 years, you can definitely see from the industrial age, you started to see, it started to go up, and then it started to kind of tail off a little bit, but still continue to rise, which we know today continues to rise, not as quickly, but it's still rising and rising and rising. We continue to get hotter and hotter years and break records every single year. Surprise, surprise, we're in a bleaching event. But the third bleaching event happened between 2014 and 2017. This was the longest and most widespread bleaching event on record at the time.